So our final speaker is not a psychiatrist nor a psychologist, but he is a Mr. Adam Shaw, who has suffered from anxiety, debilitating anxiety, from obsessive compulsive disorder, from panic attacks and depression from the age of 5. He says, still into his 30s, he experiences as very, very, very forcibly. He is now, however, successful in business and did start a successful business throughout this time. And he's married and got 5 children and 1 other on the way, so nearly 6 children. He is a philanthropist. He is somebody who wants to do something to help people who went through what he went through. He started the Shaw Foundation and the Shaw Mind Foundation, I beg your pardon, which is looking after really the children of parents who suffer from mental illness, among other things. But he has been literally on the brink of a railway bridge, ready to jump and commit suicide. He's come back from that, and he's now going to share some of these thoughts with him. A great welcome to Adam Shaw.
If I stand here, is that good? Okay. Thank you. It really is a privilege for me to be here today. It's a tough act to follow with 2 fantastic doctors. As the host said, I'm a sufferer. I was a sufferer. But just so you know a little bit about me before I kind of go into my journey, my story, which I hope that some of you can resonate with. I've been fairly successful in business. I've been lucky. I started a business in my late 20s, and that grew into something fairly big. We ended up employing about 1,000 staff, and I sold that company in 2014. So on the outside, I've been friends, family, and the circle of friends that I move in. I obviously look successful. I look like I had it all. But I was suffering, and I have suffered all my life with debilitating mental health problems in the form of anxiety-based mental health problems, which is OCD. And really, it's my earliest memories. My first memories since I was 5. First going to school, I knew something wasn't quite right in my head. I knew I was slightly different. I didn't understand what these sensations were that I was having. But it started with little rituals, like when my parents dropped me off at school. I used to feel like I had an obligation that something wouldn't happen to them on the way back home. So it felt natural for me to start to invent rituals to try and alleviate that, what didn't feel quite right. And of course, what I didn't know at the time, it was anxiety. It was going through my body. But as a human, when we're scared, we're trying to figure something out. We're trying to reassure ourselves and make ourselves better. So the natural thing for me to do at the age of 5 and 6 was to invent rituals to make myself feel better. And it started with little things like touching a light switch 4 times. There was 4 members of my family, my mum, my dad, my sister and myself. And to me, that was rational. That made sense. And it made me feel better. It meant that my parents weren't going to be killed on the way back from school when they picked me up or on the way to school. And it started like that. And it played a part in my life every single day. And as we know, that's reassurance. And reassurance is when it comes to anxiety, it's a seductive drug. You need more. And until you break that cycle, it just becomes worse. But unfortunately for me, it didn't just stop there. My thoughts grew into something far more sinister. It began down a path that I started to have harm OCD, where I thought I would hurt people. So I'd be the worst kind of person. But just not hurt anybody. I had thoughts that I would hurt my loved ones, my family, my friends, vulnerable people, disabled people. Really atrocious thoughts that I wanted to get rid of, but I couldn't. And they were in there, and they started living with me every single day. And of course, when I'm 39 now, so I went to school in the late 80s, early 90s, and there was nothing really about mental health or mental illness. The only thing that I ever came across about mental health or mental health problems was it was in the news. So the only time it would be brought up in our household was, oh, have you seen that person who's gone on a mass killing streak? He's mentally ill. So that just reinforced everything, all my fears. And And naturally, I thought I was a killer. And of course, at that age, I couldn't have gone to my parents and said, I'm having thoughts about killing somebody. I think I'm going to kill people. I think I'm going to strangle people. I can't go near knives. I think I'm going to go and kill everybody in school. Because, of course, I didn't want to be locked up. And I think in the 80s and 90s, if I'd have said that, or anybody with that kind of OCD would have said that, I think, you know, the chances are that they probably could have been sectioned. I mean, it's not like that now. And it's really important to stipulate at this point, and I noticed when you was asked who suffered from OCD and anxiety at the beginning, there was a few put your hand up with OCD. But it's really important to stipulate with OCD that nobody with OCD ever carries out these actions. It's actually a worry problem. It's not that we're going to go out and do these things. It's a worry problem. But of course, I didn't know that being young. I thought I was having these thoughts, and we did the example there with the polar bear, and I was trying to rid myself of these thoughts. The more I rid myself of these thoughts, the more they would come, and they'd be intrusive. And of course, at this age, I still wasn't educated. I still didn't know anything about mental health. I still didn't know what I was going through. So every day became a battle, and it became natural for me to find and invent rituals and compulsions to make myself feel better. And even on the days, you know, going into my teenage years and into my 20s, where at this time I was still not diagnosed, because it goes back to the point that we said that especially people with OCD and high anxiety, we're very, very ashamed of these thoughts. We're very embarrassed of these thoughts. And so we find good ways of keeping it to ourselves, and that's what I did. I kept it to myself. But that took its toll because, you know, every single night, even on my good days, I would go to bed and I would have this sense, this wave, this resting on my shoulders, this distress that I'd gone through each day. Even on the good days, I was still worried. I still had that anxiety because I thought, you know, what if my OCD comes on? What if I can't get rid of it? Even though I didn't know it was OCD at the time, I was saying about these thoughts. So it was a tough childhood. And as I said, I came from a middle-class family. I've been very successful in business, and I'm fortunate for that. On reflection, and without even doing it purposely, I was able to harness my OCD into my business. It acted as a distraction for me. It acted as avoidance. So whenever I had debilitating OCD thoughts, I would throw myself into my business. That would distract my mind from everything. It was still there at the back of my mind. I knew it would come on, but I would throw myself into work, and I was very particular about everything. So one could say, you know, it helped me in a certain way. But so my life kind of went on, and throughout that I managed to hide my OCD. I got married. We had all those children, I think 10. I don't know, we're all with the same lady, but and I managed to survive, but that's all it was. It was survival. It was an existence, and the reassurance had got so bad, and it took its toll, and it almost became like I felt like I was in a locked-in state. And this was in my early 30s. My business had just started to see its first bit of success, and we acquired a company in Spain. So I appointed a team over in Lanzarote, and I went over to head up that team. So I took my family with me. And by this time, my rituals were every day around my intrusive thoughts. And this is when my world really came crashing in, because I'd managed to survive with rituals and compulsions. But it was my daughter's birthday, and we were in Lanzarote. We just left a villa. We were going down to a lovely, lovely area just to spend some time at the beach. And there was a bridge, and we was just driving under the bridge, and there was this little old lovely Spanish lady crossing the bridge. And this thought jumped into my head that I could strangle her. I could kill her. And no one would be, you know, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'2", nearly 6'3". No one would be powerful enough to stop me from killing that old lady. And it was like ice through my veins. That almost finished me. And I'm missing a little bit of the story out here because my wife had already become familiar a few years back about my OCD. And I'd managed to control myself that day and not become emotional in front of the kids. But we got back to the villa that evening, and I just broke down. I felt in a locked-in state where I could just not escape these thoughts. There was nowhere to go. And So I told my wife I was very emotional. I don't cry very often, but I was very upset in front of her. And I said, I need to go back to the UK. I've got to figure this out. Because I'd been passed from pillar to post in the NHS. The NHS has been wonderful to us because it's delivered 5 healthy kids for us. But, somebody who's not got any direct ties with the NHS, I can stand up here quite comfortably and say I think it's lacking in resource at the moment for mental health, and we know that. And so I'd seen specialists, I'd read books, and there was nowhere to go, and I'd got worse. And I made a rational thought to end it all. There was a bridge not far from my house in Sheffield. I'd wrote out the will, and it was the right thing it felt like the right thing to do. And how did I justify it to myself? Well, I can tell you this, people with mental health problems, people with severe anxiety, severe OCD, they will be some of the most strongest people that you will ever meet. They really will, because what they have to put up with, what they go through each day. And this is when you get, well, I'll talk about it after, but when you get to recovery, this is what you have to draw on. You have to draw on those experiences to realise how strong you are and be compassionate to yourself. But I got to the point where I felt there was nowhere to turn. And it was almost, how do I justify ending my life when I have a family, I have financial security? And I wrote a letter, and I said, please liken it, and this was to my children, to my family, and I said, please liken it to somebody who's got a terminal illness such as cancer. It's a horrible thing. Nobody wants to see you go through that. But actually, when they've died, there's a little bit of relief that they're not in that pain anymore. And I felt that was the same for me. If they knew the mental torture that I'd been going through and battling with all my life, and these intrusive thoughts that I'd been trying to fight all my life, if they knew the pain I was going through, they'd let me go. And that was my rationale for doing it, or for planning it. And I went down that evening, and I stood on a bridge. I sat on the bridge, I stood on the bridge, I sat on the bridge. This went on for about 20 minutes. And I finally sat back down, and there was this, I was so sure I was going to do it. No trains had passed, and for the first time in my life, because I now was in control, or I felt in control, that my mental health problems cannot get me, for the first time in my life, I had this peace of mind. It's a very sad situation, because I had peace of mind because I was going to end it all. But I had peace of mind because I was in control. It couldn't get me anymore, and I'm going to escape it. It's the first time I've ever had that in my life. And I thought to myself, Adam, what a very, very sad situation. If you can have this peace of mind now while you're sat on a bridge just about to end it all, why can you not have this sense of peace of mind in the real world? You must be able to do it. You've just proved to yourself, 5 minutes, you sat down, and nothing can get you. It's almost like you've faced your fear. And I swung my legs over the bridge. I spent about half an hour crying, calling myself a coward that I couldn't go through with it. I was justifying it to myself that, no, Adam, you've just found a bit of peace. There's another chance here. But then said, no, that was an excuse, Adam, because you've not found the courage to do it. So I was in turmoil. But the next day, and by this time, I was having panic attacks most days. I was going down to the local hospital. They put me on diazepam. I was on an antipsychotic drug called quetiapine. But I found a charity called OCD UK. And I poured my heart out to them, like I've never done before. And they were very good. They just said, tell us all about it. Because when I'd seen a previous doctor, I'd never told them about my thoughts about killing people. I'd never gone that far because I didn't want to have my kids taken away from me. But when I opened up to OCD UK, I thought, you know what? Even if they phone up a mental health institute and they put me in, section me, I don't care. I've got to tell somebody. They've got to know what I'm going through. But they were so understanding. And they said, Adam, you've got something here that a lot of people have got. Yes, you've got it in a fairly debilitating form, but there is recovery. And we work with 2 very, very good psychologists, and this is all they specialise in. They really are the cream. But they're private. Do you have the resource to go private? And I said, well, fortunately I do. So they put me in touch with 2 psychologists, both based in London. I was in Sheffield. I couldn't travel down, so they had to come up and see me. One couldn't make the journey, one could, and that's where I met a lady called Lauren Callahan, a therapist who changed my life. Just absolutely changed my life. And I could not believe this therapy, what she provided could be found and it could help me. Why was it not accessible on the NHS? Why are people being made to wait 6 to 12 months for therapy? Because mental health, when you're suffering in a crisis point, it's torture. It's absolute torture. There's nothing even comes close to it. But she was this young, very aesthetic, beautiful New Zealand lady. She first came into our house, and I thought, as you do when you've got mental health problems, it's very negative. I thought, no, she doesn't know anything. She's not going to help me. We sat down, and I told my life story to her like I'd done to OCD UK, because I thought, well, I've told them, I might as well tell her everything. She's going to try and help me. And she said, Adam, has anything that you've ever done battling your anxiety over your entire life, has it ever worked for you? Ritualising with your thoughts, thinking things through, trying to analyse it, has it ever worked? I said, no. Maybe temporarily, maybe I've had some temporary relief, but no, it's not worked because I'm here. I'm here. She says, well, put your faith in me and try something else. What have you got to lose? The worst case scenario is you go back to where you are now. The best case scenario is we get some kind of recovery. She said, have you ever tried accepting these thoughts for what they are? And my initial response to that was, there's no way I'm going to accept anything about my mental health problem. I've been fighting it for 30 years. Why am I going to lay down my arms and accept it? That's silly. She said, and it will always stay with me. She said, if you accept your thoughts for what they are, that's where you're going to start changing the game and you're going to start to get control. Control is not about actually having control of your mental health or your thoughts, because we can't control our thoughts. We have 50 to 70,000 thoughts each day. We can't control them. We can control how we react to them and how we interpret them. She says, but it starts with acceptance. And I was, well, how do you mean? Have I just got to accept that I'm going to be poorly all my life? I've got to accept that this is how it's going to be? And she said, absolutely not. That's not what I mean. You allow these thoughts in, just like you allow your good thoughts in. And that's where you change the game. She said, have you ever noticed where your good thoughts, your uplifting thoughts, your emotions, they come and go? Do you know why they come and go? Because you've accepted them. You've allowed them in automatically because they're pleasurable thoughts. They're nice thoughts. They've come in. Your body's automatically accepted them. Bad thoughts, bad emotions, nobody likes them. We don't accept them. That's why they all hang around and we want to remunerate and try and dilute it. But if you have the courage, not the fight, because do not get fight mixed up with fighting the mental health problems, because fight is an ally of anxiety. Fight and anxiety go hand in hand. It's a key ally. Anxiety loves nothing more than fight. It loves nothing more than you talking about it and analysing things. Do not fight your mental health problems. Instead, have the courage to face them. There's a big difference between fight and courage. Have the courage to face your mental health problems. And I was, okay, so I'm accepting. And she said something to me that still stays with me, and I hope it resonates with you guys. She said, have you ever listened to a song, Adam, that you really, really like? You've played it in the car, and it goes on and on. You play it over and over again, and it's very uplifting, and then eventually after a couple of weeks, you become desensitized to that song. It doesn't give you the same uplifting feeling. And I go, yeah, that happens a lot. She says, that's because you've let it in. You've accepted it. You like that song. You want that emotion. You play it. Your body's got used to it. You've accepted it. She says, your bad thoughts come from the same place. If you have the courage to face those bad thoughts and bring them in and allow them in, no matter how bad they make you feel, no matter how uncomfortable they make you feel, if you allow them in, the same thing will happen. Acceptance leads to desensitization. But it's having the courage to accept that, you know what? You're not going to feel good all the time. You're going to have sensations of anxiety from time to time. It happens. There's nothing you can do to control it. Because if you start to try and control it, start to reassure yourself, it's a slippery slope. It's a vicious circle, and that's what anxiety's after. You've got to accept it in its fullest form, no matter how bad you feel. And she gave me this graph, and she said it would be like this. And I'm sorry, I've not got anything to show you. But she says you will get worse before you get better. And you'll want to give in. You'll want to quit. You'll want to give in to the reassurance. You'll not want to feel bad. You'll not want to feel sad. You'll hate these thoughts. You'll want to do some reassurance. You'll want to analyse things. She said you've got to have the courage to do it. And we went through that process for a couple of weeks, maybe a month. And at first I wasn't compassionate to myself. I was seeing no improvement. And then we started to talk about compassion. And exactly what the doctor said there about, how would you talk to your friends? Give yourself a pat on the back and see how far you've come. And then we talked about embrace. Now we started to accept thoughts. We talk about embracing them. So instead of just having the courage to accept them, go towards them. My biggest fear was I didn't want to be around knives because I thought I would murder my children or that I would strangle people. From age 18 to 21, I carried handcuffs in my pocket just in case I thought I'd have an urge to strangle someone. And it became a compulsion in itself to touch them. So if I thought I was going to strangle someone, I could shout out to someone in the street and say, "Can you put these handcuffs on me?" It sounds silly, but that's what I went through for 3 years. And Lauren came into the room one day with a knife, and she said, "Put the knife to my neck." We didn't do this straight away because we'd spent 4 weeks or so accepting and becoming used to this awful sensations that anxiety brings. But because I had the courage to face it and bring it into my life, it started to desensitize. I started to feel like I was winning. And she says, "Now's the real test. I want you to put the knife to my neck." And she made me do it. And I put a knife and she made me push it to her neck. And you know what I realized? Something that I'd been running away from all my life actually had no substance. It was a liar. It had lied to me all my life. But I put it up on a pedestal, like we do in Society for Mental Health. We put it on a pedestal because throughout the decades, we've swept it under the carpet. And when you do that, it puts it on a pedestal. It gives it more power than it deserves. And that's exactly what I'd done with my OCD. I'd given it more power than it deserves. And it took this lady who came into my life to show me how to address it and to show me to have the courage to face it. And that's how my recovery got better. I still have OCD traits, and I'm probably still prone to a little bit more I'm anxious today. I had a big company, and I'm used to speaking at big events. But when I'm speaking about something like this that I'm very passionate about, I was nervous. I was anxious. But I faced my fear, and I've stood up and I've done it. But there's something that I just want to go through. How are we doing on time? Okay. Because for me, how I've looked at it now I've recovered, because I still have OCD traits, I still have anxiety from time to time, but it's how I interpret it now. It's now how I interact with that. And I can quite honestly say it's never going to affect me like it did. I'm never going to have the panic attacks. I'm never going to have the breakdowns like I did, because I know how to control it. And I control it by understanding I'm not in control of my thoughts, and I accept them for what they are. But for me, and what my foundation's about, because one of the things I did, I sold my company in 2014. As I say, I was very fortunate. I tried retiring for about 5 weeks, and I had the kids, and I thought, no, I need to do something. So we launched a global charity, the Shore Mine Foundation, and we've put a lot of resource into it to make a difference, to make a huge difference. One of the key things that we're doing was launching a national crusade, and hopefully you can see the things on your chair there. We've launched a petition against the government to make mental health compulsory in all UK schools and primary schools. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. There is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be. The society today, our schools are not ergonomically designed today to fit the society that we live in. And mental health education should be fundamental, just like reading and writing, because without our mental health, we have nothing. It's an absolute life skill. I learned algebra at school. I've never used it. I went to a rough school, so probably none of my friends ever used it either. But mental health is something that we will use, and we use every day. These are future pilots. These are future policemen who we're teaching. They may not have mental health issues themselves growing up, but they'll damn well come across colleagues and friends and family who will. And at the moment, nobody's educated on it, apart from our fine doctors and the charities. Nobody's educated on it. We don't know how to deal with it. The sticking plaster technique's not working. The first aid technique's not working. We've got to go back to the root. And the only way we can normalise it and encourage children to open up and talk about it is by making it compulsory, to make it normalised in society to talk about mental health instead of keeping it to ourselves. It won't stop people from having mental health problems, but it'll make things damn sight better for those who do have. And for people who don't have, they will be a lot more understanding. And we could be a real leader in the world with mental health and addressing mental health issues. But it comes with a government taking a stance and being brave and saying, yes, times have changed. And there's a really good question on the social media, which the young lady brought up there. Times have changed. Social media is a big example of that. Everybody puts the highlight reel on there. It's not reality. It's not real. And our kids and us, we have no way of managing this. We don't know. And it's fundamental to the next generation. We've already let my generation down by not having them educated. If you make mental health education, it will have a pervasive effect. It will filter through to society. It will help the NHS. It will help the economy. How many businesses lose money because of mental health problems? And it will make us a stronger society. So I urge you, at the end, if you could really go on our website, www.Shaw Foundation, Shaw spelt my, you'll see on the logo, my surname, S-H-A-W. We have the petition, which we launched only 6 weeks ago, and we've got 50,000 signatures already. And we need 100,000 to get it debate. If you want to watch out for me, I'm going to be on the One Show. I've already been on this morning. Good Morning Britain. We've got a massive campaign going, so I hope you can all get behind that. But the one thing I want to end on is the one thing that Lauren taught me is that now I'd recovered, I needed to understand. I knew myself. I knew who I was. And I didn't have to beat myself up that I had a mental health problem. In fact, addressing your mental health issues, what we say and what we say at our foundation, and we say now, I also have we've launched an innovative global mental health publishing enterprise which just does recovery books that has a cohesive relationship between a leading psychologist and a sufferer. The first one in there tells mine and Lauren's story, but all the proceeds go to our charity. So it's to fund the charity. But they're amazing books, so if you want to go on our website and have a look, feel free to. But within those books, we also say that, you know what, mental health problems, actually, for those that suffer from mental health problems, they can be a blessing. It can actually be a blessing. You need the bad times to make the good times better, and that's what I came to learn. And there's an extract. When I do talks like this, I don't usually like reading from a paper, but there's an extract in our book that I thought would be favourable to read to you, because this is about saying, look, we're not just going to stop at recovery. Our society wants to be more than that. We want to go beyond recovery. We want to show people who've had mental health problems that actually you know your mind better than anyone else. You're actually in a better position than people who've not had mental health problems. You know yourself very well. Use that to go to the next stage in your life and make having mental health problems the most positive thing that's ever happened to you. And that's what I've done. So I'd just like to read this extract from our book, because it's more than recovery. Recovery is only the halfway journey to getting over mental health problems. It's about taking the next stage. Okay, so this is the bit I wanted to read. Recovery from mental illness gives you the tools to be able to deal with life's issues. Because, and this is true for me, it gives you new values, new strengths, new ways of dealing with things that you never thought you had before. So in this way, you're actually one of the biggest winners in the universe. You can let your mental health issues be the most positive influence in your life and use them to make a difference to the world around you. Turn your experience of mental health problems into a positive and affect change. Be thankful for what your mental illness has given you. You are able to cope with the best and the worst of what your mind has to offer. You can do anything you want. And it goes back to what I was saying about how strong people are with mental health problems and about understanding and being compassionate to ourselves. You don't have to accept things the way they are. Reality just doesn't happen. It's created by people whose ideas and visions are put into action. Every product you buy, every service you use, every building you enter is a product of someone having the courage to face their fear. They didn't stick to the rules. They pushed past the perceived boundaries to create something great. And that's what you have to do with your mental health problem. Having the courage to face and embrace your fears, it allows you to truly live and create opportunities for yourself. Give yourself the wonderful ability to create your own reality. Don't go to your grave without writing that book, without starting that business, without conquering your dreams. To recover from a bad situation like mental health problems is to survive. To use that bad situation to affect the change, it's to thrive. And that's it. Okay.
Just under 10 minutes left, but we can ask questions of Adam. So if you've got any questions for Adam, do let me know and put your hand up. Here we are. Is there anyone else too? Anybody else?
Adam, firstly, a big thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm a parent of a son with autism who we believe may have a OCD. A question which I don't wish to offend you or to upset you, but really for the panel, is, in your opinion, professional opinion, do you think that OCD could possibly be inherited? Or is it just a one-off condition? I appreciate it's quite a controversial subject. And no offence to Adam.
I can answer. I think there's a case for that. I know I'm not a doctor, but there's certainly a case for that. My middle daughter has particularly bad OCD and shows all the traits that I had. The wonderful thing is, because what I went through, we're able to intervene with that very quickly, and we've been able to address it. And my heart goes out to her, because if I'd not been able to do that, she would have been in a similar situation to me. So, and because I had it at such a young age, and it felt natural, it was my first thoughts. I think it's one of those things that, you know, whether they call it a chemical imbalance or it's hereditary, I think there's a good argument for that, yeah.
And Karen, what do you think? I'd say probably not. There's not a lot of evidence within families.
I get a taxi then, okay, thanks. No, she stopped. We spotted it a couple of years ago. She was doing little routines and doing little remunerations in her head, and then we were able to open up and talk to her, and that was the thing, normalising it, because she was embarrassed, and we said, look, what you're going through is a normal human condition. So we were able to kind of dilute it initially because we talked about it. So that's why my view is that it's probably there is a hereditary element.
Thank you. Well, we are going to have our little group discussion. Has anybody got a question for any of our panel before we finish? Here we are.
Sorry, it's me again. I've got a question for... What's his name? What's your name again?
Adam.
Adam, sure, yeah. Sorry. No.
Obviously didn't have much impact.
No, you did. No, I've heard about your foundation through social media. So that I was going to say, I think I really agree with the point you said about education in schools, because I think I read somewhere recently that the government is going to trial was it more CBT or something in schools, but it's whether they actually carry it out. And I think actually I think definitely starting from a young age, getting people talking more like face to face with people about their problems, because actually I think when one person says something and they actually open up about something, actually in my experience I found that has made me want to open up. So it's the question of like, actually if enough people do it, then actually, as you were saying, it will become the norm and people will want to think, actually, you know, it's okay to have anxiety, it's okay to have anxious thoughts, it's okay to feel a bit up and down sometimes, and actually we're all really complicated human beings, and actually I think people forget that actually it's normal, because actually I've had to deal with it quite a lot in my own personal experiences, and actually I'm just going into a bit, but like when I was 14 I had to be in an adolescent unit for a long period of time, and a psychiatrist, no offense, but said, he said to me, you are not normal at the age of 14 and I was like, well, actually, what is normal? Because actually, everyone has their own way of seeing the world and experiencing things. And actually, I think if people can realise that, you know, it's okay to be a bit abnormal sometimes, and actually okay to be a bit crazy, then actually. So I just wanted to, with the education thing, I don't know how. Do you think starting really young, or that's my question then?
I think as time is running short, I'm going to use this as a global question for our three panel. I'm going to get our three panelists to say, is it normal to sometimes not be normal? Karen? That's what you're saying?
Impossible language to yeah, I mean, you're completely right. Everybody sees the world differently, and that's normal for them. If it causes them distress, they might think about ways in which they might change the way they see the world, but they're entitled to see the world as they choose.
Chris, what do you think? If you ever said to somebody you're not normal?
I don't think that's a helpful way of thinking about things. I think we're all normal.
Yeah.
You know, we're all tall and short, thin and fat. We're all worried or confident. You know, we're all lots of huge mixes of strengths, positive weaknesses, things that need developing. And wouldn't it be incredibly boring if we weren't, actually?
That's true. And the last word to you, Adam.
Can I just answer the question
Of course,
on
please.
the mental health? The education. Secondary and UK and primary schools is what we have to aim for. And I noticed that there are things that are happening, but unfortunately it's voluntary at the moment, and it's trial, and it becomes a tick box exercise. And unfortunately, we all know what happens with tick box exercises. It doesn't work. You have to make it compulsory. You can't have the sticking plaster technique. Schools and teachers are under far too much pressure to do more. We had a response from the government that basically said, we want schools to decide what kind of mental health to have. You can't do that. We can't do that, because it will get missed. It will completely get missed. If you make something compulsory, it becomes regulated, and that in itself is more beneficial to the teachers in school. It gives them more structure, and it gives them more clarity, not more tick boxes. We can't put teachers in schools under more pressure. We have to make this defining and make it compulsory. And it gets missed, and the only way we can normalise for the next generation, the only way we can do it, is make it compulsory in schools. There's no other way. The only people who win by not having compulsory mental education, pharmaceutical companies. That's it. It doesn't benefit anybody else. It doesn't benefit the economy, schools, society, parents, families. It benefits no one. We must make it compulsory. And I urge you all to go to the website and sign a petition for me tonight and share it, please. That'd be amazing. Okay, thank you.
Well, we're finishing on time. I just want to say thank you for three exceptional speakers. for giving your thoughts and for sharing this with, and from contributions from the floor. And as David Jacobs, so it shows how old I am, David Jacobs, who used to present Any Questions at the end of every programme, every week, he would say, "You're the best audience we've had tonight." Yeah. And you are. Thank you very much.
Just before we say goodbye to everybody, I just wanted to say to Karen, thank you very much for speaking tonight. I was going to get Chris and Adam a bottle of wine, but Chris flew in, so I've had to give him a voucher instead.
I'd have to drink it before getting it.
So thank you very much.
Before Peter just says his farewell, I just want to say that when I was asked if I would come down tonight, I thought, Bath, I cannot do it, it's a half a day out, I can't do it, I already work through the night, because I am obsessional about doing things to perfection and following up every single contact. And I always say to people, don't follow me, because that way madness does lie. But I'm damn glad I came, and thank you.
I just wanted to say very briefly, thank you, Carol. You're a very good chairman. You do the job very efficiently. And I would like to thank Karen, Chris, and Adam for really very instructive and, in some cases, very moving speeches. I found Adam's speech hit the right spot, and I'm sure a lot of us empathise with him very much. There is a small difference. Adam was very lucky that he was able to pay for the help that he really needed. Trymphobophobia can help, perhaps in a smaller way, but just the same it can help, at almost no cost at all. And that makes it a very much broader audience who we really can reach out to and do something for. If any of you feel that you need help, Trymphobophobia is here to help you. If you feel that you can help us, we really need a branch in every big city in England. We are always short of money because people are hesitant about giving money to mental health. They are frightened of it. They think they might catch it themselves. A donation would be hugely appreciated, and if you feel that you could give us some time, please be in touch with us, because there is a lot of scope for voluntary help. You have been a good audience, and thank you all very much.